Imagine turning a corner on your morning coffee run only to find a glowing, terrifying purple portal tearing through the middle of the city street. The military's got yellow tape everywhere warning people to keep out. But let's be real, who wouldn't be sweating bullets looking at a literal tear in reality? Meanwhile, completely oblivious to the apocalyptic vibes standardly popping off down the road, our main guy walks through the crowd with the biggest, most peaceful smile you've ever seen on a Monday morning. Meet Yoon Gan, our fresh-faced protagonist who is officially graduating from the orphanage system today and stepping out into the real world with high hopes and even higher spirits. Growing up without parents was rough, sure, but Gaon isn't bitter at all, especially since he's finally collecting his government settlement support fund to start his adult life. You see, back in the day, the orphanage director gave him the ultimate financial advice. Skip eating 100 fast food burgers now so you can feast on 200 later. And little Gaon took that burger math deeply to heart. Fast forward to today, and that discipline actually paid off big time as Gaon walks out of the bank with a bank book that tripled thanks to special youth savings programs. Smart financial moves in a manhwa? Honestly, that might be the rarest superpower of all. He's practically floating on cloud nine thinking about locking down his apartment lease, completely unaware that a masked guy wielding an ominous, demonic dark sword is creeping right up to the bank entrance. The ski mask robber peers through the glass with glowing red eyes, exhaling breath like a feral beast ready to wreck someone's entire day. Unbothered inside, Gaon sits at the teller desk, casually filling out forms to open his new savings account and wire his lease deposit. He does the mental math and grins from ear to ear, realizing he'll still have over 31 million won left over to live comfortably while job hunting. Life is about to be smooth sailing, baby. With a sudden, terrifying crash, the glass front door shatters into a million pieces as the ski mask maniac leaps into the lobby, roaring that this is a robbery. Dust settles over broken glass while the robber lands in a menacing superhero villain crouch right in front of panicked bank patrons. Waving his long sword around like a total lunatic, the robber screams for everyone to freeze, sending poor Gaon's dream of a peaceful life instantly down the drain. People instantly drop to the floor, covering their heads, while the robber brandishes his blade around the lobby. Because apparently bringing a literal medieval broadsword to a bank heist is the new meta. He aggressively points the tip of his cursed blade directly at the crowd, roaring at everyone to keep their hands up and stay completely still. Out of nowhere, the brave bank security guard draws his revolver and aims it straight at the intruder, ordering him to stop. But the robber just smirks like he's been waiting for this exact moment. With a violent whoosh, the robber starts spinning his broadsword like a literal helicopter blade, creating a wind turbine of steel in front of himself. With glowing red eyes radiating chaotic energy, the masked freak taunts the guard to go ahead and pull the trigger if he dares. Watching this absolute madness unfold, Gaon's jaw hits the floor as he realizes this isn't just a regular crook. This guy is a legit awakened one. Flashback to when reality broke. Mysterious dimensional gates suddenly began opening across the globe without warning. Horrifying swarms of monsters, from massive ogres and goblins to vicious lizardmen, came pouring out to wreak havoc on humanity. But in response, certain humans awakened internal mana, gaining supernatural strength and skills that shattered normal human limits. These superhuman warriors became known as Awakened Ones, the world's new frontline defense and ultimate powerhouses. Back in the bank, Gaon inwardly panics, knowing that if this robber is an awakened warrior, a simple security guard bullet isn't going to do a single thing except get deflected. With a deafening bang, the guard pulls the trigger anyway, sending a bright golden bullet speeding straight toward the villain. The robber grins wildly, watching the incoming projectile in slow motion, with his glowing crimson eyes completely locked on target. He brings his blade up in a dramatic, powerful arc to slice the bullet clean out of the air like an absolute anime badass. The entire room holds its breath as the patrons gasp in terror, bracing themselves for the guard's tragic demise. Smoke clears, and there's a smoking bullet hole right smack in the middle of the robber's forehead. Wait, what? Bro completely missed the deflect. The robber faceplants hard onto the floor, muttering his hilarious last words about how bullets are actually pretty fast, before passing out. Okay, I stand corrected. Bro thought he was him, but reality hit him at 1,000 feet per second. Deep, uncomfortable silence fills the room as everyone slowly turns to stare at Gaon, who turns bright red from sheer cringe after Hype Man predicting the robber's deflected bullet move 2 seconds earlier. As the guard double-checks to see if anyone is hurt, the dropped dark sword on the floor begins radiating an eerie, glowing purple miasma. A sinister voice echoes directly from the dark hilt, berating its former wielder for being an utter disappointment and a weakling. The cursed artifact shines with blinding purple magic, whispering demonic promises into the minds of everyone in the room. Touch the blade and unleash infinite power. A dark, hypnotic aura washes over the crowd, forcing purple light into the eyes of the terrified bystanders as the sword tempts them to feed on blood and gain ultimate strength. Poor Grandma Park, overwhelmed by the mental manipulation, starts reaching out with glowing purple eyes, desperately praying for strength to save her husband. The entire room descends into chaos as ordinary citizens fight against the overwhelming mental corruption, parents crying and elders praying as evil magic fills the air. In the middle of the dark room, Gon is on his knees, shivering as the cursed sword's dark energy locks onto him. Gaon slowly stands up, his face completely veiled in shadow as a sinister purple glow ignites around his frame. His eyes snap open with terrifying, burning purple flames, his lips trembling as he mutters two dark, obsessed words, "My precious." Before anyone can react, Gaon leaps across the bank like a possessed rabid beast, diving full speed straight toward the cursed sword on the floor. With eyes bulging and tongue practically hanging out in a manic frenzy, Gaon looks completely insane, causing patrons to scream that he's been bewitched by the artifact. Gaon literally parkours off people's backs and vaults over overturned benches like a human missile, utterly unhinged in his pursuit. The guard lunges forward with open arms, shouting at the top of his lungs to stop the kid from making a fatal mistake. Gon pulls off an impossible mid-air dodge, slipping right past the guard's grasp and slamming his hand onto the cursed sword's hilt. Massive purple flames of demonic energy explode outward, swallowing Gaon whole as he erupts into wild, maniacal laughter while the crowd screams in horror. Just as fast as it exploded, the demonic energy vanishes, leaving Gaon collapsed on his knees, head hung low while gripping the dark blade tight. The bystanders watch in utter heartbreak, mourning the poor young kid who just sacrificed his soul to a cursed weapon right in front of their eyes. The guard slowly inches closer, sweating as he nervously calls out to see if the possessed kid is still conscious. Gaon slowly lifts his head from the shadows, his eyes unreadable as the intense scene ends on a massive cliffhanger. Ever wondered what happens when a demonic, world-ending artifact tries to possess a broke guy? Well, hold on to your seats, because right as this terrifying, multi-dimensional flaming eye tears open a mental realm to claim a new host, reality is about to take the most ridiculous turn imaginable. Floating in total darkness, our guy Yoon Gaon gets cornered by this booming demonic voice demanding he offer up his most precious possession as proof of their newly forged dark contract. Gon clutches his head in absolute agony, visibly sweating as he realizes the evil entity isn't asking for his soul, but something way more personal. Talk about high-stakes negotiation right off the bat. The demonic sword shows him a vision of ultimate, terrifying power, promising him the strength to rule over the entire world, crush all his enemies, and stand above every human alive. Man, manhwa villains really use the same standard sales pitch every time, don't they? With glowing purple flames igniting in his eyes, Gon succumbs to the dark urge, muttering that he wants it more than anything, while the sword screams at him to hand over his priceless treasure. His eyes snap into sharp focus with unhinged determination as he prepares to make the sacrifice. Honestly, shout out to the artist for making him look like an absolute final boss right before doing the dumbest thing ever. Cut straight back to the bank. The security guard and patrons yell in terror as Ganon grips the dark sword, completely convinced he's become a brainwashed monster ready to massacre everyone. Standing silently in the middle of the lobby with his head bowed, Gon holds the sinister blade while dark, eerie miasma ripples through the room. Suddenly, bang! Ganon snaps back to full consciousness, his eyes glowing bright blue with utter panic as he snaps out of the mental trance. With a frantic roar, he takes off sprinting across the bank floor at Mach speed, sword in hand, sending all the patrons ducking for cover like he's about to initiate a boss fight. He vaults over overturned chairs and dashes past screaming bystanders, completely ignoring the crowd as he locks his sights onto one specific target across the room. With a loud slam, Gaon dives headfirst onto the service desk and smashes his hand onto his green savings bank book right in front of the teller. The poor bank teller lady freezes in absolute shock, staring at the passbook with her jaw on the floor like, "Sir, this is a Wendy's moment." You've got to love how hilarious this sudden shift in tone is. A mechanical chime echoes as the digital screen confirms the wire transfer has been processed, leaving Gaon standing quietly at the counter holding a literal cursed demon sword like a receipt. Gaon dramatic poses like an anime anti-hero, covering his face to confess that his most precious possession on Earth was his entire life savings of 31.65 million won, and he just wired every single penny to his old orphanage. While Gaon groans that the price of power is way too steep, the cursed sword is having a complete existential crisis, roaring in utter disbelief that a demonic soul contract was sealed with cash currency. The red gem on the sword hilt blinks in confusion as the ancient blade realizes that somehow money actually satisfied its ancient magical contract requirements. Gaon turns around asking where his dark powers are, while the sword mutters in defeat that cash is cash, so it can't really complain. Meanwhile, heavy footsteps echo near the entrance. A tall, incredibly stylish woman with icy blue hair in a sharp black suit steps out from the shadows, commanding him to freeze right where he stands. She flashes a shiny official badge, introducing herself as Agent Kang Chong-hwa from Team 2 of the Hunter Administration Bureau's Special Affairs Division, demanding he drop the weapon immediately. Gaon's eyes pop out of his head as he realizes who's in front of him, the legendary Special Affairs Unit known as shooting first and asking questions never. Without hesitating for a single second, Gaon yeets the sword into the air and throws his hands up high, begging for his life like a true pragmatic protagonist. But as Agent Kang glares at him, Gaon gasps in terror because whoosh, the dark blade boomerangs right back into his right hand like a magnet. He frantically hurls the blade away again, only for it to spin around in midair and snap straight back into his grip. The evil sword cackles in his mind, reminding him that once a contract is bound, they are linked forever. Meanwhile, Agent Kang's eyes narrow with zero tolerance as she raises her hand. Look at that sleek character design on Agent Kang. She definitely stole the entire scene's budget. Clank, click, bzzd. Her suit sleeve mechanically shifts and transforms into a high-tech robotic gauntlet charging up with electric blue plasma. She aims the glowing cannon straight at Gaon's face while he wildly waves his hand, screaming that the sword is glued to him and won't stop talking about drinking blood. Unbothered by his excuses, Agent Kang cold stares him down as the lethal energy core in her gauntlet reaches maximum power with a dangerous hum. Gaon screams for mercy, the sword demands blood, and in the background, Grandma Park is still throwing hands, fighting off 3 people. Talk about absolute chaos in one frame. Cut to a quiet interrogation room. A stern, middle-aged man in a suit takes a seat across from Gaon, introducing himself as Team Leader Park Do-kyung of Special Affairs Division Team 2. Gaon politely introduces himself as an unemployed orphan graduate, and Team Leader Park gives him a warm smile, confirming the CCTV cleared up the whole misunderstanding. Gaon wipes sweat from his forehead, complaining that Agent Kang almost vaporized him on the spot without listening to a single explanation. Team Leader Park laughs it off, admitting his agent can be a bit rigid, while Agent Kang stands in the corner looking strictly unbothered. Getting down to business, Park explains that items originating from beyond the dimensional gates are known as cursed tools, and Gaon has accidentally bonded with one. A sinister graphic displays how cursed swords bewitch anyone nearby and corrupt their wielder into a bloodthirsty demon. Man, this world-building lore drops in such a clean way. Gaon's nervously asking how to break the link since the sword keeps returning, but Park reveals that terminating a soul contract is nearly impossible. However, Park adds that since regular old grandmas and little kids easily snapped out of its hypnotic spell, this dark sword is probably just an E-class trash item at best. Hearing E-class, Gaon smirks with smug disappointment while the sword erupts into a furious rage, screaming at Gaon for being the only idiot who actually fell for the spell. Gaon pauses in thought for 2 seconds before his eyes widen in utter horror as he realizes the sword is 100% correct. He really was the only person weak enough to fall for it. Leaning over the desk, Gaon, in desperation, asks if there's any legal way to get his 31.65 million won back from the orphanage donation. Team Leader Park shakes his head, warning him that trying to reverse a magical contract's causality will cause horrific, soul-destroying backlash. Accepting his painful fate, Gaon sighs that at least the money went to his childhood orphanage, completely unaware that the director in his memory looks suspiciously like a total scam artist. Walking out of the Hunter Bureau HQ, Gaon bids farewell to the officers, with Park reminding him to call them immediately if anything weird happens. Watching him walk away, Agent Kang turns to her boss, asking if letting a civilian roam free with a cursed weapon violates standard protocol. Park sighs that the quarantine unit is completely packed right now, then begins awkwardly twisting a giant ruby ring on his finger. Veins pop on Park's forehead as he groans and pulls with all his strength, his eyes bulging as he tries to yank the ring off. Panting for breath, the tough team leader looks completely defeated as the ring doesn't budge even a millimeter. Turns out his fancy ruby ring is also a cursed tool stuck on his finger. He turns to Agent Kang, sweating buckets, asking if she can get it off for him. Agent Kang looks down at her boss with the most deadpan, unamused gaze in anime history. With a completely flat expression, she hits him with a stone-cold, "It is impossible," ending the situation on the absolute peak comedic note. Imagine being bound to an ancient demonic artifact that promises ultimate power, only to realize it completely ruins your ability to get a normal job. Team leader Park Do-kyung stares into the distance, gravely reminding his squad that once a human falls under the spell of a cursed tool, there's zero chance of escaping corrupting darkness. His face splits into a terrifying demonic outline as he warns that sooner or later, absolute corruption is guaranteed to consume the wielder's soul from the inside out. But wait, let's take a hilarious step back, because while normal cursed artifacts turn people into bloodthirsty monsters, our boy Gon literally threw his away, while a grandma and a kid casually ignored its telepathic spell. Walking outside headquarters, Park admits to Agent Kang that since the blade accepted literal cash currency as a contract price, and Gon didn't even care about losing his savings, it might not be a high-tier threat after all. Kang wonders if the sword is just too low-grade to corrupt anyone, but Park insists that nobody in recorded history has ever possessed total immunity to demonic corruption. Atmospheric beat. Kang double-checks if there's ever been a single case of corruption immunity, and Park confirms with absolute certainty that since the dimensional gates first opened, 0 humans have been immune. Adjusting his shades with a sharp, calculating look, Park decides they should just keep a close eye on the kid from a distance for now. Cut to the city streets, Gaion is casually strolling down the sidewalk holding a literal dark demon blade like it's a grocery bag. Talk about zero self-awareness. Up ahead, the bright fluorescent lights of a local convenience store gleam as Gon decides it's finally time to grab a quick late-night meal. Ding dong, the front door chime rings as the store clerk looks up, preparing her generic customer service greeting. But as Gaion walks through the door groaning about how starving he is while clutching a sharp, sinister broadsword, the poor clerk's eyes pop out of her head in pure terror, thinking an armed robber just walked in. To make matters 10 times worse, Gaion starts arguing out loud with the sword, telling it to shut up about drinking blood because he's the one who needs food. The clerk is sweating bullets, completely convinced she's dealing with a psychopathic murderer. Beep beep, Gon places a single cup of instant ramen on the counter, but when the clerk scans his card, she politely informs him that his account balance is sitting at a crisp $0. Boom! A metaphorical lightning bolt shatters Gon's soul as he remembers he literally wired every single penny of his 31 million won savings to an orphanage 5 minutes ago. Absolutely losing his mind, Gaion grabs the cursed sword with both hands and starts violently shaking it over the counter, screaming at the piece of metal to give him his money back while the clerk hyperventilates in horror. Suddenly, out of nowhere, an elderly grandma in the store gets hit by the sword's demonic wave, her eyes glowing with absolute rage as she demands godlike power just to beat up her husband. Man, grandmas in manhwa truly operate on a completely different aggression level. Crash! The possessed grandma lunges forward like an NFL linebacker, tackling Gaion from behind while the terrified clerk frantically dials emergency services on her phone. Right on cue, a friendly police officer steps into the convenience store, casually asking if anyone has seen a missing elderly lady nearby. Dead silence. The officer freezes in place, witnessing Gon holding a massive sword in the air, while a feral grandma tackles his waist and the clerk cowers behind the counter. Click! The cop draws his service pistol with trembling hands, screaming at the kidnapping robber to freeze, while Gaion frantically screams that it's all a massive misunderstanding. Thankfully, Agent Kang arrives just in the nick of time to flash her government badge and clear up the chaos before the cop turns Gaion into Swiss cheese. Back at HQ, Park reiterates to Kang that corruption immunity is unheard of, meaning Gaion is bound to break under the sword's dark pressure. Eventually. 1 week later, the scene shifts to the bustling city where Gaion is wandering around looking like an absolute zombie with dark circles under his eyes and his trusty cursed sword glued to his hand. Bystanders back away in disgust, whispering to each other that a total lunatic is carrying a lethal weapon down the public sidewalk in broad daylight. Gritting his teeth in frustration, Ga-on glares at the red gem on the hilt, blaming the cursed blade for ruining every single aspect of his daily life. Seeking a fresh start, Ga-on decides to apply for corporate jobs. Inside a sleek interview room, two executives call in their next candidate. Clank, clank. A heavy metallic scraping sound echoes from the hallway, making the interviewers tilt their heads in confusion. Boom! Ga-on bursts through the door in a sharp suit with the cursed sword tied straight to his belt, eyes glowing with unhinged enthusiasm as he introduces himself as applicant number 13. Ga-on hits them with a terrifying villainous grin, prompting the interviewers to scream in absolute terror and instantly reject him for looking like an armed assassin. Look at that face! He literally looks like a final boss trying to get an entry-level desk job. Stamp! A giant red rejected stamp slams onto his job application. Next up, he tries manual labor at a construction site, but carrying a 4-foot-long demon sword while hauling heavy boxes gets him kicked off the site instantly. He tries a corporate sales role, but leaning over the desk with a murderous demon stare while holding a broadsword doesn't exactly close the deal. Crash! He even tries working as a restaurant waiter, but his sword ends up knocking over customer drinks and smashing plates everywhere he turns. Talk about zero spatial awareness. Realizing the sword is the sole reason he's unemployed, Ga-on carefully leans the blade against a hallway wall before stepping into his next job interview. The interviewer warmly greets him, assuring Ga-on that their company's super flexible and welcoming to new recruits. Giving an enthusiastic thumbs up, the boss praises Ga-on's diligent energy and officially hires him on the spot, extending a hand for a congratulatory handshake. Flash! Just as Ga-on happily reaches out to shake hands, the cursed sword's magnetic binding magic activates, yanking the blade instantly into his right hand. Freeze frame! Instead of a friendly handshake, Ga-on ends up accidentally pointing a sharp, gleaming broadsword directly at his new boss's throat. The CEO screams for security in sheer panic, calling Ga-on a cold-blooded murderer, while poor Ga-on cries in absolute agony as another red rejected stamp hits his record. Standing alone on the public sidewalk surrounded by terrified onlookers, Ga-on reaches his absolute boiling point. Shadow covers his face as he stares down at the hilt, his voice trembling with pure, unadulterated rage. Whoosh! With a desperate roar, Ga-on yeets the cursed blade high into the sky, praying to whatever god is listening that it disappears forever. Snap! Like an unwanted boomerang, the dark sword spins through the air and snaps right back into his palm with a loud clatter. Ga-on breaks down into ugly, dramatic tears, screaming at the top of his lungs for the demonic piece of metal to just leave him alone. Eerie whisper! The demonic voice echoes in his mind, chuckling dark promises of blood, violence, and forbidden power as Ga-on groans in complete mental exhaustion. Boom! Dark purple miasma explodes around Ga-on as he drops to his knees, clutching his head. The sword laughs maniacally, declaring that after a full week of resisting, his soul is finally breaking. Swirling dark energy wraps around his body like a cocoon as the ancient entity orders him to unleash his deepest, darkest desires upon the world. Crackle! A crimson spark flashes in Ga-on's eye as demonic corruption completely overwrites his consciousness. Throwing his head back with a sinister smirk, Ga-on mutters that he won't hold back his urges any longer, while the demon sword celebrates its ultimate victory. Chomp! Driven by pure, corrupt madness, Ga-on reaches into his pocket, pulls out 3 snack sausages, and violently tears into them all at once. Seriously? After all that demonic buildup, his ultimate evil urge was just multitasking snack time in public? You've gotta love this main character. Imagine giving up your soul to an ancient demonic blade only for your absolute worst villainous act to be over-snacking in public. Ga-on clutches his mouth in utter horror, staring into the abyss as dark power surges around him. Driven by pure evil madness, he violently shoves multiple energy bars into his face at once, leaving the ancient demonic blade completely speechless as it asks what on earth he's doing. Dark miasma explodes as Ga-on maniacally boasts that eating an entire box of energy bars meant for single servings is his ultimate act of villainy. Crackle! You've gotta love how the demon sword thought it was corrupting a Dark Lord, but got a mildly rebellious high schooler instead. With a dramatic wind-up, Ga-on crunches up the empty snack wrapper and yeets it straight onto a kid's playground, roaring, "Fire in the hole!" cursed blade drops its jaw in utter disbelief, asking if littering without recycling is seriously what he considers a high-tier crime. Whoosh! Posing dramatically under a cloud of purple smoke, Gaon declares that he has accepted his dark fate and will no longer suppress his inner evil impulses. Dark energy swirls around the sword as the ancient demon realizes its host's version of accumulating evil deeds is literally civic disobedience. He's fighting for the right to park in handicapped spots, not burning down kingdoms. The demon faces an eternity of petty pranks. The agony. Gasp! The dark spell suddenly breaks, leaving Gaon shaking in terror as reality hits him, and he realizes the grave moral sin he just committed. Tears streaming down his face, Gaon grips the hilt and screams at the sword for forcing such unforgivable corruption onto his pristine soul. Sprinting over to the nearest trash container, Gaon carefully tosses the wrapper into the recycling bin, wiping sweat off his forehead as he attempts to restore order to the universe. Rumble! The sky suddenly turns pitch black as cosmic karma reacts, warning that forcefully reversing causality always comes with a devastating backlash. A massive shadow portal opens beneath him, swallowing Gaon whole as he screams in pure agony into the void. Gasp! Gaon snaps awake with a violent twitch, gasping for air as if waking from a nightmare. Disoriented and sweating, he looks around his room, trying to figure out how on earth he transported back home in an instant. Touching the floorboards, he realizes the floor heating is blaring on max, the air conditioner is running at full blast, and the window is wide open. Boom! A lightning strike shatters his mind as the realization hits. The universe punished his karma reversal by slapping him with environmental destruction and a catastrophic utility bill. Panicking, Gaon remembers all the other heinous crimes causality forced him to commit, like giving someone directions instead of walking them to their destination, or letting elevator doors close without holding the open button. Agony. He tears at his face in absolute despair, remembering how he secretly sat in the bus priority seating area, clutching his head as the weight of his sins crushes his spirit. Crouching on the floor in pure misery, Gaon laments his wicked actions while the demon sword sizzles on the scorching heated floor, begging him to turn down the thermostat because it's literally roasting. Gurgle! A loud, embarrassing stomach rumble breaks the heavy silence. Gaon hangs his head, feeling ashamed for thinking about food after committing such vile acts, while a sword groans that his definition of sin is completely out of touch with reality. Opening his refrigerator, Gaon sighs in disappointment as he stares into a stark, empty fridge with zero food in sight. Gleam? Heading down to the local supermarket, his eyes light up with pure bliss as he spots a juicy pack of meat marked down by 50. Clank, clank! Bystanders freeze in absolute shock as Gaon casually strolls down the shopping aisle, dragging a massive lethal demon broadsword in his grocery basket. A strict security guard immediately steps in, scolding him for bringing a deadly weapon to a store, while Gaon bows profusely and stammers out an apology. Reaching the checkout, Gaon hands over his self-reliant support card to pay for his discount meat. The cashier glares at him with deadpan judgment, asking why on earth he's carrying a medieval weapon around if he isn't even a registered hunter. Ramble. She launches into an endless, aggressive lecture about public safety and kids cloud-chasing as hunters, turning Gaon's quick grocery trip into a total nightmare. Grabbed by pure social anxiety, Gaon snatches his bag and bolts out the front door at full speed, screaming apologies to the entire store. Thud. Collapsing onto his bed back home, Gaon sighs with relief, reflecting on how everyone keeps mistaking him for a monster hunter just because of the blade. Suddenly, a light bulb goes off. If carrying a sword is illegal for normal citizens, that means official hunters are legally allowed to carry weapons anywhere. Tap, tap. Pulling out his phone, he immediately searches up the Hunter Bureau portal to check the licensing requirements and massive salary perks. Atmospheric panels illustrate the dark history. Ever since dimensional gates opened across the globe, monster swarms emerged, giving birth to the hunter profession. Elite military defense forces and shadowy Bureau special affairs agents mobilized to secure the city perimeters. Meanwhile, mercenary private hunters equipped with high-tech gear and massive broadswords hunt beasts for fame and glory. Staring at a sample hunter license, Gaon's eyes sparkle with dollar signs as he realizes this job could solve all his financial problems in one go. Swing! The cursed sword suddenly floats in midair, howling maniacally for fresh blood and scaring the living daylights out of Gaon. Gaon wonders if an E-class low-tier artifact that could be outgunned by a basic pistol can even pass the hunter entrance exam, while the blade demands human sacrifices. Rubbing his chin thoughtfully, Gon stares at the sword, wondering if the bloodthirsty weapon would accept other biological liquids as long as they contain organic nutrients. Ghostly glow, Gon agrees to feed the blade, making the ancient demon weapon rejoice, completely unaware of the absurd trick its host is about to pull. Swoosh! Pure divine energy flashes across the room as the sword greedily gulps down the incoming liquid stream. Smacking its lips, the sword notes that the blood tastes surprisingly salty, to which Gaon calmly replies that modern human diets are just way too high in sodium. The sword complains that the liquid has a weird scent, but Gaon casually dismisses it by claiming everyone has high cholesterol these days. Talk about top-tier gaslighting. PP, the camera pans out to show Gaon standing over the bathroom floor, literally peeing directly onto the ancient demonic artifact. Glowing with satisfaction, the demon blade happily thanks its master for a hearty meal, completely oblivious to what it just consumed. Turning on the shower head, Gon rinses the sword while musing that urine is just filtered blood anyway, while the sword enjoys its post-meal bath service. Scrubbing the steel clean, Gon realizes that if urine works, monster blood from Gate Dungeon should be more than enough to keep this sword powered up. Suspicion. The sword suddenly pauses, narrowing its gaze as it asks Gon where he actually harvested that blood from. Gon hits it with a sly smirk, claiming he stabbed a handsome guy on the street, prompting the sword to laugh before realizing it's getting played. The demon blade screams in rage, pointing out that a coward who thinks playground littering is evil would never stab anyone, while Gon casually chuckles that his cover's blown. Imagine gaslighting an ancient demon sword so hard it starts questioning its own taste buds. Standing in his bathroom, Gon casually wipes off with a towel while the legendary cursed blade vibrates on the floor, demanding to know where on earth that mysterious liquid actually came from. Gaon gives the sword the ultimate stone-cold silent treatment, slowly wiping down the steel blade with a shadowy, unbothered expression while the demonic weapon starts sweating bullets, dreading the horrific truth. Panic. Realizing it was definitely not human blood, the demon-eyed gem on the sword's guard flashes in utter horror, screaming at its master to confess what vile liquid it just consumed. Hitting the sword with an absolute villain face, Gaon asks why the menu even matters as long as its belly is full and satisfied. Talk about treating an ancient cursed entity like a fussy toddler who just accidentally ate a crayon. Without missing a beat, Gon suddenly adopts a serene, angelic expression and decides it's time for a bedtime story, opening with the famous ancient legend of the Buddhist monk Wanhyo. Transporting us back in time with some classic historical artwork, the story reveals how monk Wanhyo took shelter in a pitch-black cave during his travels and drank a deliciously cold bowl of water in the dark. But bam! Morning light hits, and Wanhyo realizes he just drank stagnant, maggot-filled rainwater out of a cracked human skull. Cue the dramatic gagging, followed by instant philosophical enlightenment that perception is everything. Floating in a glowing golden lotus position like a full-blown spiritual deity, Gaon preaches that all pain, pleasure, and revulsion are merely illusions constructed by one's own mind. Surrounded by divine enlightenment energy, Gon finishes his grand sermon by explaining that the sword didn't drink bodily waste, but rather the pure, unfiltered essence of life. Honestly, using high-level Buddhist philosophy to justify peeing on a legendary artifact is legendary-level mental gymnastics. Click! The demon gem narrows its gaze as the cosmic gaslighting finally wears off, slowly piecing together the terrifying reality and whispering, "Urine?" Snap! The divine aura completely vanishes as Gon casually drops a deadpan, "Yup," and sets his towel down, leaving the demonic weapon paralyzed in sheer existential horror. Outside the apartment building, the sword's tragic wails echo through the neighborhood as Gaon insincerely promises to hunt down some real monster blood next time to stop its crying. You've gotta love how this guy defeated an ancient warlord weapon with 0 violence and 100 emotional damage. Dramatic shift. We jump forward into a flash-forward teaser where a battle-hardened hunter in tactical gear gasps in pure terror deep inside a dark, misty forest. The camera pans across the eerie clearing, showing multiple heavily armed hunters lying unconscious or dead across the muddy ground. Sweating buckets, the bearded veteran grips his throat, wondering how on earth a routine monster sweep turned into an absolute slaughterfest. Creepy chuckle. Suddenly, a shadowy figure with glowing blue eyes and a demonic grin creeps out from behind a tree holding the cursed blade, sending the hunter into a blood-curdling scream. Man, the manhwa artist really knows how to deliver peak horror paneling right here. Cutting back to the present bright sunny day, we see the towering glass skyscraper of the official Hunter Management Bureau standing tall in the city center. Walking inside the sleek lobby, Gon awkwardly scratches his neck at the reception desk, timidly asking how one goes about registering as an official hunter. Expecting a brutal entrance exam, Gon is utterly dumbfounded when the cheerful receptionist instantly hands him an official hunter license along with a cute patterned gift bag. She explains the baseline rules with a smile. Every registered hunter must complete at least one official mission a week, and racking up 4 missed quotas means instant license revocation. Standing alone in the middle of the lobby holding his brand new ID, Ganon enters a complete state of deadpan shock over how ridiculously easy that was. Staring at his level 0 badge, Gaon complains about the total lack of power scaling tests, while the cursed sword grumbles in dark smoke that it missed its chance to flex by snapping an examiner's blade in half. Beep. Pulling out his smartphone, Gaon logs into the official HunterWeb mobile portal to search for beginner-friendly missions to clear his weekly quota. A level 0 recommended task pops up on his screen, a Dark Zone sample collection gig in Gangbuk-gu with a whopping payout of 1 million won. Cha-ching! Gaon's eyes literally transform into giant cash symbols as he screams in ecstasy and aggressively slams his thumb onto the accept button. Look at how fast his broke college student instincts kicked in. Arriving at the mission site, a swirling dark purple portal throbs ominously in the middle of a barricaded residential street as hunters gather around. Glancing around at his fellow mercenaries, who are all strapped with heavy tactical assault rifles and Kevlar vests, Gon starts low-key regretting bringing a plain melee blade to a gunfight. The veteran squad gives Ganon the ultimate side-eye, whispering among themselves that kids these days are all fashion over function for bringing swords into a Dark Zone. A friendly veteran named Mr. Kim walks up with an SMG in hand, kindly asking if this is Gaon's first mission, and noting that melee swordsmen are almost extinct in modern gate clearing. Mr. Kim laughs in hearty nostalgia, flashing back to his wild youth when he used to run around wielding a giant sword looking like a 1980s heavy metal rock star. That flashback art style switch is absolute comedy gold. Attention! A sharp female bureau official in a suit and glasses steps up, holding a handheld scanner, announcing the start of the mandatory Karma Index check. Scanning a hunter named Park Min-soo, the device beeps a high reading of 5,226, causing the poor guy to scream in denial as he's immediately barred from entering the portal. Mr. Kim explains the mechanics to Gon. Operating in dark zones builds up corruptive karma, and exceeding the 5,000 threshold drastically skyrockets the risk of demonic transformation. Next up, a cocky elite hunter named Park Jun-shik gets scanned at a comfortable 2,976 karma and walks past the barricade, flexing his low score. Mr. Kim admires the guy's insane purification speed, predicting he's on the verge of awakening higher hunter abilities real soon. Kim turns back to Gon, explaining that initial baseline karma determines natural talent, and anyone scoring under 800 on their first check is considered a prodigy. Speculating that Gon might score somewhere in the respectable 700s, Mr. Kim gets called up next for his turn at the scanner. Beep! Mr. Kim gets clocked at 4,533 karma, wiping sweat off his brow as he realizes he's dangerously close to the 5,000 lockout limit. The official calls out Yoon Gaon, and our oblivious protagonist steps forward with a polite, casual wave. Beep beep! The red scanner light flashes directly onto Gon's forehead as the official looks down to read the digital display. Dramatic shock! Their official's eyes pop out in complete horror as she stammers out a jaw-dropping number, 58,466? Talk about the curse sword breaking the entire measurement system. Click, clack, instant mayhem erupts as every single hunter in the square draws their assault rifles and handguns, aiming directly at Gaon's head while screaming that he's a fully corrupted fallen monster. Panicking for his life, Gon screams for Mr. Kim to help him, only for the veteran to turn around with a demonically enraged, flaming face, yelling, "Die, you fallen bastard!" Staring into 12 loaded rifle barrels, Gaon instantly puts his hands up in a hilariously deadpan, effortless surrender pose. Wait! The official frantically waves her arm, sweating bullets as she realizes her embarrassing mistake and shouts that she misread the display. She yells out the actual corrected score of 0.58466, leaving every hunter frozen in awkward silence while Gon blinks in sheer confusion. Going from apocalyptic demon threat to literally an innocent newborn baby in 1 second is top-tier comedic timing. Stepping inside the foggy dark zone, Gon gears up with a full gas mask and pulls out 2 small gardening sickles, looking low-key terrifying in the gloom. Scratch, scratch, while Gon enthusiastically crouches in the bushes digging up dirt samples for his 1 million won payout, the cursed sword at his hip sobs hysterically for human blood. In the background, another heavily armed hunter stretches his back to take a breather, completely ignoring Gon, quietly scooping soil like a suburban gardener. Crouching peacefully in the misty forest, Gon keeps happily filling his sample bags with dirt, proving that while everyone else is out here playing high-stakes military shooter, our boy is just running a cozy farming simulator. Just when you think a break is coming, the veterans point out that with a ridiculously low karma score like 0.5, our boy Gon doesn't even need a breather. Gaon is left awkwardly scratching his head through his gas mask, completely clueless that his cursed sword broke the scanner, while the squad grumbles about the mission being a dead end. Sweating through the damp fog, the hunters vent their frustration over discovery of nothing but useless weeds instead of high-value monster flora. Cough, cough. Out of nowhere, Mr. Kim drops to his knees as a terrifying dark purple aura pulses around his body, heavy panting echoing through the trees. Zoom in! Behind his goggles, Kim's eye flares with bloodshot veins as corruptive karma threatens to completely invade his mind. Talk about a dramatic spike in tension. The rest of the squad rushes over in panic, realizing Mr. Kim is right on the verge of turning into a corrupted fallen. Stab! Without hesitating for a single second, Kim jams an emergency auto-injector straight into his arm to suppress the dark urge. Gasp, veins bulging on his forehead, Kim fights off the demonic influence with pure, sheer willpower as the suppressant kicks in. Breathing a heavy sigh of relief, Kim mutters that a dose of heavy morphine usually does the trick, leaving Gaon in total deadpan shock over how insanely dangerous this job actually is. The veteran squad gives Gon a fair warning: keep your gas mask tight and never push your limits unless you want to end up a raging monster yourself. Footsteps. Another hunter named Mr. Park approaches the group, casually suggesting it's time to stop digging weeds for chump change and aim for a real payday. Park points through the thick brush, highlighting the exact area the Bureau told them to avoid: a massive, aggressive goblin settlement. Roar! Cue the dramatic reveal. A green-skinned goblin holding a crude stone axe lets out a blood-curdling shriek as red light flares from its eyes. Rat-tat-tat! The squad doesn't even flinch, instantly laying down a wall of automatic gunfire that shreds the charging horde in seconds. Honestly, combining modern military firepower with fantasy gate clearing never gets old. Flash! Activating his speed enhancement skill Acceleration, Mr. Park dashes into the battle like a green blur. Swoosh, bang! Blitzing through the misty forest at high speed, Park guns down every goblin before they can even process what hit him. Standing on the sidelines, Gaon holds his blade in awkward silence, while the cursed sword literally trembles with craving, screaming that it smells fresh blood. Gaon glances toward a cluster of thatched huts, casually asking his demonic weapon if the scent is coming from over there. Swoosh! A stray goblin leaps out of the canopy with a wooden club, prompting the sword to yell in panic, thinking its master is too soft to defend himself, only for Gaon to slice straight through it. Slash! In one effortless, fluid arc, the goblin gets cleanly bisected midair before it can even land a single scratch. Static cue. The cursed sword floats in absolute silence with a literal question mark over its guard, totally flabbergasted by what just happened. The demonic blade stammers out that given Gaon's gentle nature, it fully expected him to preach peace and refuse to shed blood. Flashback time, Gon fondly remembers his orphanage director sternly commanding him to never, under any circumstances, use violence against human beings. Sparkle, little Gon's eyes brightened up like an innocent angel as he asked if using brutal violence against non-humans was fair game instead. You gotta love how his childhood logic completely bypassed the moral lesson. Thumbs up! With a shadowy, hilarious grin, the director gave him the ultimate green light, inadvertently giving birth to a monster-slaying menace. Squish! Back in the present, Gaon thrusts the blade into the fresh corpse, letting the cursed artifact drink its fill while it cries in joy over finally eating real food. Zap! Dark red tendrils of karma spiral out of the goblin and flow straight into Gaon's hands, making him shiver as the blade explains the absorption process. The cursed sword arrogantly boasts that normal hunters only absorb weak leftover residual energy, whereas true strength comes from devouring both karma and soul together. Slice! Meanwhile, Mr. Kim is busy slicing off goblin ears with a hunting knife, chuckling happily about the 50,000 won bounty per year. When Gaon strolls back into the clearing, the squad jokes that he's officially popped his hunter cherry by securing his first monster kill. With the grunt goblins cleared, the squad moves deeper toward the main chieftain hut, determined to track down a high-tier cursed tool. Walking down the dirt path, each hunter starts daydreaming about how to spend their multi-million-won share, from proposal rings to amusement park trips. Pro tip in any fiction story, talking about your wholesome future plans before a boss fight is a total death flag. Eerie silence. The team stops right in front of an ominous wooden compound decorated with animal skulls mounted on wooden pikes. Creak! Mr. Park cautiously pushes open the heavy wooden gates, rifles raised and ready for an ambush. Flame, whoosh! Torches ignite along the walls, revealing a dark altar surrounded by dead goblin sacrifices and a looming shadowy figure in the center. Red glow! The shadowy figure turns around with a sinister grin. Red target reticles locking onto the intruders. Boom! Bursting with intense dark magic, a massive goblin shaman adorned with bone necklaces and a demonic staff roars at the top of its lungs. Karaka! The shaman shrieks its battle cry, ready to unleash an apocalyptic spell upon the foolish mortals. Bing! A sudden blinding flash cuts through the dark room before the shaman can even finish casting its high-level incantation. Thud! Just like that, the high and mighty goblin shaman collapses face first into a pool of its own blood. Man, talk about getting instantly, anticlimactically deleted. Mr. Kim rubs his neck in embarrassment, admitting he got jump-scared and accidentally pulled the trigger. Modern guns beat high fantasy magic every single time. Glint? Kneeling down, Kim slips a glowing purple gem ring off the shaman's finger, admiring its high market value. Curiously stepping forward, Gon asks to take a closer look, and Kim hands it over while warning him not to put it on in case it's a cursed artifact. At his hip, the ancient demonic sword sweats bullets, desperately wishing it could stop its master from doing something monumentally stupid. Slip, completely ignoring the warning, Gaon shoves the ring onto his finger, eyes widening as he screams a hilarious, "My precious," like an absolute maniac. Zoom into mind space. Gon gets pulled into a void realm where a dark cosmic entity asks if he craves ultimate power, to which Gon flatly replies no. Derp face. Gaon asks if the ring can manifest a Hanwoo Bulgogi burger combo, leaving the cosmic entity stuttering in complete brain rot shock. Trying to save face, the entity demands a sacrifice in exchange for fulfilling his weird fast food wishes. Slide! Without giving it a single second thought, Gaon casually slides the ring right off his finger, telling the godlike entity he'll shop around first and come back later. Negotiating with demonic artifacts like they're a thrift store is elite-tier behavior. Click-clack! Snapping back to reality, Gon finds the entire squad pointing loaded assault rifles right at his face, horrified that he was yelling "My precious" like a possessed cultist. Ever wonder what happens when a quick payday turns into a total battle royale? Well, right as the squad tries to catch their breath, Mr. Kim drops to his knees with dark purple aura literally bursting out of his chest. Take a look at his eyes under that visor, they've turned pitch black. The corruptive karma in this dark zone is officially overtaking his entire mind. Seeing their veteran squad leader lose his sanity, the rest of the hunters instantly back away, knowing they need to evacuate before he turns into an all-out monster. Panting heavily, Kim desperately clutches his face and lies through his teeth, claiming he just needs to swap out his gas mask filter to be fine. But while everyone is worrying about Kim, Mr. Park steps up behind them with an icy look in his eyes, casually stating there's a much simpler solution to their problems. Click-clack! Without a second thought, Park raises his rifle at his own teammates, while Gaon's cursed sword screams in horror for its host to dodge. Rat-tat-tat! In a cold-blooded betrayal, Park sprays an entire magazine into the back of his own squad, dropping them instantly before they can even draw their weapons. With the veteran squad wiped out in 2 seconds, Park slowly pivots his smoking barrel straight toward our rookie Gon. Talk about an absolute snake in the grass. Swoosh! Gon reacts on pure instinct, diving out the doorway just as a barrage of bullets shreds the wooden frame behind him. Smirking under his mask, Park arrogantly mutters that he left the rookie for last, completely shocked that Gaon actually managed to dodge a point-blank execution. Gon presses his back against the outer wall, breathing heavily as he looks at his gas mask. The side filter got completely blasted off. Man, talk about surviving by a fraction of an inch. Pulling off his ruined mask, Gaon shouts in utter disbelief, demanding to know why Park would suddenly turn his gun on his own team. Park doesn't even hesitate to brag about his greed, stating it's way better to keep a multi-million-1 curse tool for himself than split it 5 ways. Plus, once he exits, the gate closes and nobody will ever know. Bang, bang, bang! Shouting that Gon just needs to hurry up and die, Park rounds the corner firing aggressively while Gon scrambles across the dirt floor. Tack, tack, tack! Bullets kick up dust right at Godon's heels as he sprints around the perimeter of the wooden hut for cover. Ducking behind another wall, Gaon keeps his momentum going, proving that high mobility is the only thing keeping him alive against automatic gunfire. Click! Park slaps a fresh magazine into his rifle with a smug grin, taunting Gaon about how long he thinks he can keep running, only to freeze when Gaon suddenly pops out from behind the wall. Swoosh! Instead of cowering, Gaon chucks his auxiliary sickle straight at Park's face like a lethal boomerang. Park manages to dodge the flying blade by an inch, scoffing at Gaon for being stupid enough to throw away his only weapon in a firefight. Thud! But before Park can even finish his arrogant insult, Gaon closes the distance in a flash, standing right next to him holding his main cursed sword. Seriously, never monologue in front of a protagonist. Slash! In one clean, lightning-fast strike, Gon slices straight through the assault rifle, completely severing the barrel and dropping the magazine to the floor. Standing over the disarmed traitor, Gaon's cursed blade glows with a terrifying crimson aura as Park stares at his destroyed gun in absolute horror. Gon raises his sword overhead with a surprisingly blank expression, preparing to deliver a righteous smackdown. Wide-eyed smile? Then out of nowhere, Gaon hits him with the most unhinged, psychotic smile you've ever seen. Honestly, the artist cooked so hard with this expression, he looks 10 times scarier than any demon. Slash! Scared out of his mind, Park turns tail and runs, but Gaon leaps forward, shouting that a wound on the back is a swordsman's shame, leaving a nasty slash right across Park's back. Screaming in pain, Park desperately triggers his speed enhancement skill, Acceleration, on his ring to escape this unhinged monster. Swoosh! Park blurs down the path at supersonic speed, but Gon is right on his tail, waving his sword like a maniac and yelling for him to slow down. Gasp! Gon gleefully shouts that he won't actually kill him. He'll just cut off exactly one arm. You gotta love how Gon's idea of mercy is absolute horror movie logic. Pat, pat, pat. Park pushes his body to the absolute limit, sprinting deep into the gloomy dark zone forest to break line of sight. Ducking behind a massive oak tree, Park clutches his chest and pants for air, desperately praying that he finally lost that crazy lunatic. Sweat dripping down his face, Park tries to rationalize it. Gon took off his gas mask, so he must have lost his sanity to the dark zone corruption. But then Park realizes his own mask filter is damaged too. Flash! Suddenly, Park remembers the glowing purple ring left lying beside the dead bodies back at the shaman's altar. Gritting his teeth, Park curses his own impatience, realizing he needs to double back and snag that overpowered artifact if he wants to survive and clear the gate. Creak! Just as he turns around, Gon casually peeks from behind the exact same tree trunk with a demonic grin, warmly greeting Park like an old friend. Park lets out a blood-curdling scream. Swoosh! Gon swings a horizontal arc that shatters the bark, sending Park tumbling backward in sheer panic. Clinging to his life, Park scrambles through the brush, realizing he desperately needs to find another gun or cursed tool to stand a chance. Glint, right ahead in the grass, Park spots an assault rifle lying right next to one of his fallen teammates' corpses. Ha ha ha! Laughing like a cartoon villain who just found the winning lottery ticket, Park dives onto the ground to grab the weapon, shouting that Gon is dead meat. But as his hands wrap around the gun frame, a pair of massive, clawed shadow legs steps right into his field of view. Slowly looking up, Park's triumphant smile completely vanishes as a suffocating pitch-black pressure crushes the air right out of his lungs. Standing above him is Mr. Kim, fully transformed into a hulking, dark purple corrupted demon with razor-sharp demonic claws. Crunch! Before Park can even raise the rifle, Kim's massive corrupted hand slams down like a sledgehammer, brutally crushing Park into the dirt. Roar! Dark energy erupts in a massive shockwave as the fully corrupted Mr. Kim lets out a deafening roar that echoes across the entire dark zone. Watching from the bushes, Gaon scrambles on all fours to get as far away from that terrifying shockwave as humanly possible. Hiding behind a wooden shed, Gaon catches his breath, realizing Mr. Kim has completely crossed the point of no return and turned into an S-tier calamity threat. Groan! Zooming in on Kim's arm, dark fur and corrupted purple veins are rapidly spreading across his skin as the demonic influence mutates his body. But wait, take a close look at Kim's hand. He's wearing the Goblin Shaman's purple gem ring. Gaon's mind flashes back to the ring's dark condition, offering the souls of 3 human sacrifices to gain unimaginable cosmic power. It all connects. When Kim was on the verge of death and corruption, he slipped on the ring and offered the 3 dead squad members as sacrifices to unlock its hidden power. Sweating bullets behind cover, Gaon stares at his sword, asking himself what on earth he's supposed to do now, while in the background, a fully unleashed demon boss roars for blood. Talk about an epic cliffhanger. What do you do when your squad leader mutates into an S-tier demonic monster and your only weapon is a talking cursed blade with 0 survival instincts? Crouching behind a wooden wall, Gaon decides the best move is simple: run for his life. But Black Dew instantly throws a violent tantrum, screaming at him to turn around and fight. Frustrated, Gaon reminds his bloodthirsty sword that while it might thrive on chaos, he's just a regular human who actually wants to keep breathing. But Black Dew hits him with a brutal reality check. With Kim's horrifying level of dark mutation, outrunning him in a foot race is mathematically impossible. Sniff, sniff. Right on cue, corrupted Kim lurks just meters away, nostrils flaring as his monstrous senses scan the clearing. The sword warns Gaon that sneaking away is completely off the table, forcing our rookie protagonist to nervously ask if this talking weapon actually has a real plan. And what is Black Dew's brilliant master plan? Simply engage the demon boss in honorable combat and die like a true warrior. Seriously, you gotta love how dark artifacts in manhwa always offer the absolute worst tactical advice imaginable. Gaon's deadpan, soul-crushed face here is an absolute mood. Boom! Before they can finish bickering, Kim unleashes a vicious claw swipe that literally shatters a wooden frame into flying debris. Reacting on pure survival instinct, Gaon slides across the dirt floor, narrowly avoiding getting turned into human paste. Ducking behind the edge of a wooden shed, Gaon catches his breath while the aura-cloaked monster scans the village. He nervously peeks around the corner, praying Kim hasn't picked up his exact location yet. Realizing he needs a massive stat boost fast, Gaon brings up the dark contract Black Dew mentioned earlier, promising raw strength in exchange for blood. Desperate, Gaon stabs the blade straight into a dead goblin corpse lying on the dirt. But the sword is immediately offended, asking if he's seriously feeding it leftover scraps. Slurp? As dark tendrils drain energy from the corpse, Gaon complains that the power buff feels way weaker than before. Black Dew bluntly explains that taking blood from an enemy someone else killed massively reduces the yield. No free handouts in the demonic underworld. The sword reminds him that true demonic power requires real sacrifice and personal kills, not thrift store scavenger hunts. Man, even dark magic has strict commission fees nowadays. Gaon can only groan in exhaustion as his lazy shortcut backfires. Roar! Meanwhile, corrupted Kim lets out another bone-chilling shriek, dark energy erupting off his mutated neck like an unleashed nightmare. Determined to wring out every last stat point, Gaon presses the sword deeper, asking Black Dew if this small chunk of energy is enough to level the playing field. Glow, Black Dew's central eye blazes with crimson power as it confirms the energy is sufficient. But just as Gaon readies himself, corrupted Kim creeps around the tree trunk, purple light glowing under his visor. Look at that monstrous design. The artist went all out, making him look like an absolute nightmare. Hi-ya! Channeling the freshly absorbed power, Gaon leaps out from cover with an epic battle cry, charging headfirst toward the beast. Naturally, Black Dew hypes him up by declaring he can at least land one solid hit before he perishes. Swoosh! Mid-charge, Gaon executes an ultra-clean, high-speed knee slide straight across the grass. Screech! Gaon slides all the way past the monster and instantly ducks behind another tree, yelling in horror that landing one hit doesn't matter if he still ends up dead. Kim just stands there in complete confusion, probably wondering what kind of bizarre strategy this rookie is playing. As Kim growls with unstable aura, Black Dew reevaluates the situation. The sword notes that Kim only recently fell to corruption and hasn't formed a proper contract yet, meaning if Gaon gets insanely lucky, he might actually survive. Connecting the dots in his head, Gaon remembers Black Dew's rule about diminished returns on pre-killed targets. Since Kim offered 3 squad members who were already dead when he activated the shaman's ring, his transformation is actually incomplete. Realizing Kim hasn't reached his full S-tier power output yet, Gon spots a tiny window of opportunity. With sudden resolve, he winds back his arm and hurls his demon sword straight into the air like a javelin. Whoosh! The blade spins right past Kim's face, leaving the demon sword screaming in absolute shock as it realizes its own master just used it as decoy bait. Betraying your own sentient weapon for a distraction is top-tier comedy, honestly. Tack, tack, tack. Taking advantage of the distraction, Ga-on dashes full speed toward the center of the Dark Zone village, leaving Kim to chase after the flying sword while trees get obliterated in the background. Sprinting through the dirt with laser focus, Ga-on tries to recall the layout of the goblin camp, searching for one specific location. Wham! There it is! A massive, gruesome pile containing dozens of dead goblin corpses, all slaughtered during the squad's initial raid. Zip! Extending his right hand, Ga-on triggers Black Dew's recall ability, summoning the sword right back into his grip like a dark Mjolnir. Stab! Leaping into the air, Gon drives the demon sword directly into the peak of the Goblin Corpse Mountain, yelling for Black Dew to drink up every single drop of blood available. Glug, glug! Black Dew's central eye opens wide in pure demonic bliss as an endless feast of crimson energy rushes into its hilt. The sword goes from furious to ecstatic in 0.2 seconds. Boom! Dark crimson flames erupt from the pile as the weapon violently siphons the life force of dozens of monsters all at once. The visual presentation here with the glowing red aura is straight up peak webtoon art. Standing below the glowing blood fountain, Ga-on anxiously asks if the blade can hurry up its drinking process, but Black Dew hilariously tells him not to rush a good meal, unless he wants his weapon to get dark magic indigestion. Thud, 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 but their buffet time is abruptly cut short. Corrupted Kim comes bounding toward them on all fours like a frantic rabid beast. Hearing the earth-shaking footsteps, Ga-on spins around in utter panic as the mutated giant closes the distance in seconds. Dash! Gon starts sprinting in circles around the corpse pile, screaming in despair because his sword hasn't even finished half of its bloody meal yet. Talk about high-stakes duck, duck, goose. Desperate to buy even a few seconds, Ga-on points over Kim's shoulder and pulls the oldest trick in the book, yelling for him to look at something behind him. Krah! Unsurprisingly, a mindless, mutated demon doesn't fall for elementary school distractions. Kim pounces forward with razor claws, forcing Ga-on to scramble for his life as his trick completely flops. Sweating profusely, Gon remembers the annoying constraint. If he strays more than 3 meters away, Black Dew automatically teleports back to him, interrupting the buff. He has no choice but to stay close to the pile and trust the process. Shadow drop. Kim leaps high into the sky, casting a massive shadow right over Ga-on as he prepares to crush him into dust. Cornered, Ga-on yells out to his weapon in a last-ditch plea. Flash! Right at that exact millisecond, the ruby on Black Dew flares with blinding crimson light. The sword roars with newly absorbed demonic power, announcing that the feast is officially complete. Boom! Kim's giant claws smash into the earth, creating a massive crater, but Ga-on executes a frame-perfect slide right between the beast's legs. Hack! Sliding through the dust cloud, Ga-on springs back up into a flawless combat stance like a seasoned action hero. Behind Kim, the drained pile of goblin corpses crumbles into gray ash as Black Dew hums with lethal dark aura, fully charged and ready for battle. Zip! With a sharp whistle through the air, the fully powered demon sword flies out of the ash pile directly toward its master. Clatch! Ga-on catches the handle midair, unleashing a shockwave of wind that blows away all the surrounding smoke. Now that's what I call a protagonist power-up moment. On one side, Ga-on sports an ultra-confident, ruthless smirk, while Kim lets out a furious howl, realizing his prey just got 10 times stronger. Crackle! Black Dew commands its host to swing with everything he's got. Gon pulls back his arm, channeling massive waves of crimson aura into the blade. Slash! Executing an explosive vertical strike, Ga-on cleaves straight through Kim's defensive posture, leaving a massive glowing wound right across his corrupted chest. Stagger! As the monster recoils in pain, Black Dew spots the vulnerability and yells for Ga-on to strike straight for the heart. Dash! Closing the distance at supersonic speed, Ga-on zeroes in on Kim's exposed chest plate, determined to end this fight in one blow. Exposed and bleeding dark energy, Kim tries to raise his arms to block, but his mutated body is way too slow to react. Close up on Ga-on's eyes, completely sharp, focused, and utterly devoid of fear. Plunge! With devastating force, Ga-on thrusts Black Dew directly through Kim's chest armor, piercing deep into his corrupted core. Crash! The sheer kinetic force slams both of them onto the dirt, with Ga-on pinning the mutated monster down by the hilt of his blade. Holding the sword tight, Guan lets out a fierce yell, ordering Black Dew to drain every last bit of corrupted energy right out of Kim's body. What an absolute turn of events. Slurp! Imagine thinking you're the ultimate monster in the room, only to realize you just became a main course for a hungry demonic sword. As Gowon drives Black Dew straight into Kim's chest, dark crimson energy surges out, making the mutated giant let out a blood-curdling shriek. Gasp! The terrifying purple light in Kim's visor begins to flicker out as Black Dew forcefully purges every last ounce of dark corruption from his veins. You can literally hear the air hiss as the dark magic dissipates into nothingness, leaving the beast wheezing in agony. Wheeze! With a final ragged breath, Kim's monstrous jaw closes up and his eyes roll back, completely drained of the dark aura that was driving him insane. Honestly, getting your demon corruption sucked out like a juice box looks like the world's worst hangover cure. Footsteps. Meanwhile, deep inside the high-tech containment facility of the Artifact Management Bureau, chaos breaks out as a suited agent bursts through the hall, yelling that Storage Vault 6 has experienced yet another catastrophic breach. Slam! The section chief turns around in sheer frustration, shouting to know what went wrong this time, only to get hit with the ridiculous news that another quarantine worker got possessed by a rogue cursed artifact. Talk about occupational hazards. Argue. Pacing down the corridor, the agents start heatedly arguing about how their containment vaults are well past their saturation point. But when someone asks why they don't just construct a new storage facility, the chief snaps back that there's zero vacant land left. Clank, clank, a heavily armed tactical squad marches down the gloomy metallic hallway, muttering in annoyance about how these cursed relics manage to mind control people even when locked behind state-of-the-art security shelters. Man, these government guys really need better insurance policies. Halt. Arriving outside Shelter 6, the team meets up with Section Chief Kim and Team Leader Park, ice-cold, blue-haired operative who looks like she could end a threat just by glaring at it. Click! Looking down from an overhead tactical view, the section chief demands to know where the rest of the assault unit is hiding. Park calmly assures him they'll breach the heavy security doors the exact second reinforcements touch down. Remembering past bureaucratic headache meetings, one official groans in annoyance, asking why they can't just find a giant trash can to dump all these cursed artifacts into once and for all. Think. Section Chief Tim pauses in silence, the phrase, "a trash can for cursed artifacts," echoing in his mind as he realizes how desperate their containment crisis has actually become. Chuckle. Cut back to the battlefield where Gon inspects the purified shaman's ring in his palm, letting out a nervous laugh as he realizes Black Dew basically turns him into the ultimate mobile garbage bin for cursed relics. Thud. Standing over the unconscious, totally drained body of Kim, Gon catches his breath while holding his sword, nervously asking himself if this crazy battle is finally over.